Good morning, everybody. Good morning. So in my book, I do talk about the body as the four seasons and reproduction. Like right now, we are dealing with death, birth, aging, illness, basically, like this whole cycle. And holy crap, I'm watching the mice go by right now. Anyways, we're going through a whole cycle. And unfettered, unguided reproduction is causing, yes, the breakdown of our society. Why is that? Because we are reproducing from bodies that have not dealt with predispositions. And now you're seeing glitches in the population. Why you're seeing crime, why you're seeing all these different autisms and different childhood diseases as well as adult diseases. And so I kind of already knew when I did my research about reproduction, it lends to really an unpredictable type of human that you can try to mold a little bit to a specific intention, but you're dealing with biochemistry that is now, you can't predict how it's going to come out. And so you can try to, but it's not always easy because you're seeing these weird illnesses are happening. So with that, that link that I posted about the University 25, and then we're also dealing with this virus, this pandemic, and you're watching CNN and Fox and all these different news outlets that are just pounding the gavel around this virus and how horrible it is, which I'm sure it is a little bit. But yeah, there's a bigger thing going on here, obviously. So I'm going to read this just so that way you guys can read along with me, and then you can kind of hear it. You can watch, you can read it, and then you can see the words, and then you can hear it, because you got to get all your five senses involved with this. And there's a picture too on my Facebook. If you're on my YouTube watching this, because I will eventually put this to YouTube, well, go to my my business page, Jilly Juice LLC, and there's a picture too of the guy, John Calhoun, and the picture of the mice. So the University 25 experiment is one of the most terrifying experiments in the history of science, which, through the behavior of a colony of mice, is an attempt by scientists to explain human societies. The idea of Universe 25 came from the American scientist John Calhoun, who created an ideal world in which hundreds of mice would live and reproduce. Well, look what we're doing now, okay? We have 7 billion people. More specifically, Calhoun built the so-called paradise of mice, a specifically designed space where rodents had abundance of food and water, as well as a large living space. In the beginning, he placed 4 pairs of mice that in a short time began to reproduce, resulting in their population growing rapidly. However, after 315 days, their reproduction began to decrease significantly. When the number of rodents reached 600, a hierarchy was formed between them, and then the so-called wretches appeared. The large rodents began to attack the group, with results that many males began to collapse psychologically. And you're watching that right now, the soy boys, the beta males out there. Okay? As a result, the females did not protect themselves and in turn became aggressive towards their young. Well, you're watching infanticide. You're watching mothers that are basically selling their kids into slavery, selling their kids to human trafficking, pedophilia. You're watching it all play out right now. Okay? As time went on, the females showed more and more aggressive behavior, isolation elements, and lack of reproductive mood. There was a low birth rate and at the same time an increase in mortality in younger rodents. While you're watching the younger people are committing suicide, very depressed. Okay? Then a new class of male rodents appeared, the so-called beautiful mice. They refused to mate with females or to fight for their space. All they cared about was food and sleep. At one point, beautiful males and isolated females made up the majority of the population. As time went on, juvenile mortality reached 100% and reproduction reached 0. And I think that's the aim right now that's going on. Among the endangered mice, homosexuality was observed, and at the same time, cannibalism increased, despite the fact that there was plenty of food. Plenty of food. 2 years later, after the start of the experiment, the last baby of the colony was born. By 1973, he had killed the last mouse in the universe 25. John Calhoun repeated the same experiment 25 more times, and each time the result was the same. Calhoun's scientific work has been used as a model for interpreting social collapse, and his research serves as a focal point for the study of urban sociology. So you're watching all of this unfold. You're watching all of this unfold right before your very eyes. Yes, they're kind of increasing the acceleration of it by this virus pandemic, and really just playing up the narrative that Trump is your archetypal savior who's going to save you from Bill Gates, save you from the cabal. I mean, come on, this is straight out of a freaking Disney book. This is straight out of a Disney freaking novel, okay, or a movie, because there's no Disney novels. Well, yeah, I mean, there's the Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz and Alice in Wonderland, and Through the Looking Glass. And I actually, you know what, interesting, now that I think about it, I had in my room, I had Disney, I had the Alice in Wonderland picture, Through the Looking Glass. Oh yeah, my childhood was fraught with Disney and all of the MK Ultra stuff. I mean, now that I'm remembering the pictures in my room, the programming that I was under. Okay, so these, I mean, and then you read, the let's see, hold on. What else? Let me read that give me 1 second. Read that. Oh, the Wikipedia. Now, Wikipedia, they give you links. They give you links on where they got the information from, but they kind of give you a little bit of a background. So, behavioral sync, which is the description, it gives you a little bit of a synopsis on John B. Calhoun. Behavioral sync is a term invented by ethologist John B. Calhoun to describe a collapse in behavior, which can result from overcrowding. The term and concept derived from a series of overpopulation experiments Calhoun conducted on Norway rats between 1958 and 1962. In the experiments, Calhoun and his researchers created a series of rat utopias, enclosed spaces in which rats were given unlimited access to food and water, enabling unfettered population growth. Calhoun coined the term behavioral sync in his February 1st, 1962 report in an article titled Population Density and Social Pathology in Scientific American on the rat experiments. He would later perform similar experiments on mice from 1968 to 1972, which is why they're using mice in biotech as experiments. Calhoun's work became used as an animal model of societal collapse, and his study has become a touchstone of urban sociology and psychology in general. So yeah, they say get out of the cities, but hey, everyone getting out of the city and going into other places, they're going to turn into another city. You get out of one city, go to another city, and everyone's all crowding together because they're going to keep everything within a specific limit, within a specific distance, because you still need food, water, shelter, electricity, and how many are really going to survive off-grid? I mean, come on. So in the 1962 study, Calhoun described the behavior as follows. Many female rats were unable to carry pregnancy to full term or to survive delivery of their litters. If they did, an even greater number after successfully giving birth fell short in their maternal functions. Among the males, behavioral disturbances range from sexual deviation to cannibalism, and from frenetic overactivity to a pathological withdrawal from which individuals would emerge to eat, drink, and move about only when other members of the community were asleep. The social organization of the animal showed equal disruption. The common source of these disturbances became most dramatically apparent in the populations of our first series of 3 experiments, in which we observed the development of what we call a behavioral sync. The animals would crowd together in a great number in one of the 4 interconnecting pens in which the colony was maintained. As many as 60 of the 80 rats in each experimental population would assemble in one pen during periods of feeding. Individual rats would rarely eat except in the company of other rats. As a result, extreme population densities developed in the pen adopted for eating, leaving the others with sparse populations. In the experiments in which the behavioral sync developed, infant mortality ran as high as 96% among the most disoriented groups in the population. Calhoun retired from NIM. Okay, have you heard of the Secrets of NIM? I read that book when I was a kid. And in 1984, but continued to work on his research results until his death on September 7th, 1995. So this was way back till 1995. Holy shit. So the experiments. Calhoun's early experiments with rats were carried out on farmland at Rockville, Maryland, starting in 1947. While Calhoun was working at NIM, National Institute of Mental Health, in 1954, he began numerous experiments with rats and mice. During his first test, he placed around 32 to 56 rodents in 10 by 14 case in a barn in Montgomery County. He separated the space into 4 rooms. Every room was specifically created to support a dozen matured brown Norwegian rats. Rats could maneuver between the rooms by using the ramps. Since Calhoun provided unlimited resources such as water, food, and also protection from predators as well as from disease and weather, the rats were said to be in a rat utopia or mouse paradise, another psychologist explains. Following his earlier experiments with rats in 1972, Calhoun would later create his mortality inhibiting environments for mice, a 101-inch square cage for mice with food and water replenished to support any increase in population, which took his experimental approach to its limits. In his most famous experiment in the series, Universe 25, population peaked at 2,200 mice and thereby exhibited a variety of abnormal, often destructive behaviors. By the 600th day, the population was on its way to extinction. Okay, cultural influences. In the 1962 Scientific American article came out at a time in which overpopulation had become a subject of great public interest and had a considerable cultural influence. The study was directly referenced in some works of fiction and may have been an influence on many more. Calhoun has phrased much of his work in anthropomorphic terms in a way that made his ideas highly accessible to a lay audience. So that's like writing books, okay, with stories. Tom Wolfe wrote about the concept in his article, "O Rotten Gotham," sliding down in a behavioral sink later to be made into the last chapter of Pump the House Gang. Lewis Mumford also referenced the Calhoun's work in The City of History, stating, "No small part of this ugly barbarization has been due to sheer physical congestion, a diagnosis now partly confirmed with scientific experiments with rats. For when they are placed in equally congested quarters, they exhibit the same symptoms of stress, alienation, hostility, sexual perversion," and you're seeing that, "parental incompetence, and rabid violence that now we find in the megalopolis." Calhoun's work has been referenced in comic books including Batman and 2000 AD. Calhoun himself saw the fate of the population of mice as a metaphor for the potential fate of man. See, so you understand where Bill Gates is coming from now, right? And why Bill Gates is pumping up the vaccine campaign. He characterized the social breakdown as spiritual death with reference to bodily death as the second death mentioned in the biblical book of Revelations. Calhoun's work with rats inspired the 1971 children's book Mrs. Frisbee and the Rats of Nim by Robert C. O'Brien, which was adapted into a 1982 animated film, The Secrets of Nim. So applicability to humans. Controversy exists over the implications of the experiments. Psychologist Jonathan Friedman's experiment recruited high school and university students to carry out a series of experiments that measured the effects of density on behavior. He measured their stress, discomfort, aggression, competitiveness, and general unpleasantness. He declared to have found no appreciative negative effects in 1975. Researchers argue that Calhoun's work is not simply about density in a physical sense, as numbers of individuals per square unit area, but was about degrees of social interaction. So let me see, I don't read that. Controversy exists over the implications of the experiments. Psychologist Jonathan Friedman's experiment recruited high school and university students to carry out a series of experiments that measured the effects of density on behavior. He measured their stress, discomfort, aggression, competitiveness, and general unpleasantness. He declared to have found no appreciable negative effects in 1975. Okay, that's interesting. Research argued that Calhoun's work was not simply but about density in a physical sense as a number of individuals per square unit, as number of individuals per square unit area, but was about degree of social interaction. Okay, interesting. Okay, so anyway, so you're seeing all of this play out. You're seeing all of this play out in a very broad sense. And this social distancing, all this stuff, the whole pandemic, fear culture, whatever. And then we're seeing HR 666 going to possibly be rolled out. You're already seeing your states, each state, 50 states have their own directives on how to deal with a pandemic. Already I found a document, PDF document, that 2011 Ohio already did their did their simulation. They actually have a document that shows that what they would do in a case of tuberculosis. Okay, but using it as an example. So anyways, this really, you're now seeing everything that they've been experimenting come to fruition. You're seeing it. And so now they never anticipated jelly juice, of course. And so you're going to have to rise above all this. You're going to have to watch everybody in your life who's not really into this actually fall victim to these experiments and all the propaganda. And it is what it is. I'm going to say it is what it is. We can only warn people. We can only inform people so much. But now, as I'm looking at my Facebook, there's more and more evidence to suggest that, yes, this definitely has been planned. Yes. Experiments were done way back in the 1940s, and then they're being more cemented and really researched in the 1980s. Like 1980s was the hub of the pedophilia, of abusing the children, because it happened in Hollywood. It happened in very affluent homes. My sister and I were part of that. We were abused as children in that manner, and that was before the internet. MK Ultra and all the different mind-controlled experiments, really like trauma-based mind control, was practiced upon experiments of people and then now put out on the population. I would say 9/11 was probably part of that, and any other type of shootings and whatever else were as a result, yes, of people breaking down or being triggered based upon that they were probably abused as children and then put out there in the population to try to defend for themselves. The programming broke down and they couldn't handle it. I mean, luckily I wasn't abused to such an extent as some of these people were, but and I dealt with a lot of whatever issues I had as a child throughout my whole adulthood. And so being on the Jilly Juice allowed me to really face up to it without going completely nuts. I mean, you saw Britney Spears, how she went nuts a few times during her years of being famous. And people are going, why is Britney Spears acting weird? Because her programming would break down every so often. Okay? And so they have to go and reprogram her back into, the limelight again. So I'm telling you that, with the Jilly Juice, you guys are gonna have to find a way to do Jilly Juice to be able to handle what is coming down the pipeline. Because that's where the Georgia Guidestones is also telling you and giving you a substantiation that, yes, we are on this grand experiment right now. We are under a grand experiment, and the Georgia Guidestones is letting you know. They're like, okay, and that's why they erected that, because they knew back in 1947 and 1980s and 90s that we are part of this population experiment. And then now they're like, okay, now we've basically like substantiated this experiment on a grand level, not just on mice, okay, like they did in 1947, but now on a human population. They've now seen the results of the experiment come to fruition, and they're watching the decay of society, like the decay of the mice population. And now it's time to clean house. And guess what? Those of you that are exhibiting these characteristics, as some of those in the mice that hold their different roles, okay, you either rise above that and change your biochemistry, or you're going to fall victim to the roles that were already placed upon you. The archetypal the archetypal characters that is so prevalent in Disney, and then now you're seeing Trump totally play his part. You're seeing Gates play his part. I mean, this is fucking insane when you put it all together. Okay, so I just say, do Jilly Juice. Take all my information, and just wrap your mind around it, because you're gonna have to, or you fall victim to the programming out there. Either way, you either break the spell, or you fall victim to the programming. And so I'm just like, oh my God. So the Georgia Guidestones is basically saying, okay, we're done with the experiment. This is now the new future. Holy crap. Holy crap. So anyways, good luck to everybody. Do the Jilly Juice. Get my book, because it's going to help you get through this process, because I'm telling you, it's not going to be easy with all this crap going on. It is not going to be easy. All right. See you later, guys. Bye.